Hello and welcome to Study with Sudhir. My name is TS Sudhir and I hope all of you are doing extremely well. Today in this video, we are going to kickstart the chapter on gender, religion and caste, which is part of the CBSE Class 10 Civics syllabus as part of the larger social science syllabus, right? So we will be doing it in three parts because all three parts are extremely important for you to understand. So in this first video, we will deal with gender, then we will deal with religion in the second video and caste in the third video. Okay, so before we start, a request to each one of you. If you are a CBSE student or an ICSE student, please share the video with your CBSE Class 10 friends, classmates, batchmates, anyone you know, so that this video reaches more students. It can benefit more students. We will be teaching in absolutely simple English, armed with a lot of experience in covering politics and governance. So it is not just bookish knowledge that we will be giving out here. We will explain a lot of things with many examples and our own independent research. ओके सो सब कुछ समझ में आएगा, गारंटी ये हमारी है SWS की. ओके so that's what we will start on. Okay, so before we start, I thought before we get into the actual text, I thought let me do a short quiz. Are we ready? If you're ready, I want you to write the answers in the comments box. Okay, these are the 5 questions. Who was the first woman prime minister in the world? Question number 2, write it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who was the first woman prime minister of India? This should be easy. Who was the first woman prime minister of Pakistan? 4th, who was the first woman prime minister of Bangladesh? Who was the first woman president of the United States of America? I'll give you this answer sometime in the middle part of this video. Answer, video ko pause kijiye, pause the video, write your answers in the comment section and let me see how many of you get it right. Okay, so let's get started with the chapter and we will be talking about gender in politics. Now, gender division is pretty much a reality of life, right? And we see this not just in politics, we see this in day-to-day life, in society around us. It's not just about the MPs and the MLAs. We see it at home, we see it on the road, we see it in society in general. And that's because there is what is called a hierarchical social division. What does that mean? Then we come to social expectations and stereotypes. What exactly do we mean by the term stereotype? Stereotype ka matlab, you look at a particular person in a particular light, that this person is supposed to be doing something like this. Let's take, for example, I give a very generic example to help you understand. You see someone who is not wearing very smart clothes, slightly crumpled and stuff like that, right? You immediately assume that he may not be very well-to-do in life. He may be like, a little poor person. Or the stereotype, suppose waiting at the bus stop or waiting somewhere and in the hotel lobby, you see someone who is wearing a dhoti and a kurta, okay, and maybe a turban, and looks a little unkempt, not shaven stuff, kind of stuff. You immediately assume that he may not be very well-to-do. But if a person is wearing a suit and a tie, you immediately assume that, okay, this person is probably from a wealthy background and stuff like that. That is stereotyping. You form certain perceptions of people in your mind depending on their attire. Similarly, over the years, over the centuries, what has happened is that there has been a stereotyping that women are expected to do this. Man is supposed to do this. Okay, so there are these social expectations, right? That when the woman, even if she's a working woman, when she comes home, she's the one who is supposed to do the cooking. These are the social expectations that have been ingrained, which is all very negative. And for your generation, definitely, you should definitely not follow these kind of stereotypes and social expectations, right? Politics. Now, you may wonder, why are we talking about a ghrelu baatein, this domestic things in a chapter which is on a subject like civics and political science, right? The book name is Democratic Politics. How is this to do about politics? Politics, my friends, always remember, is about power. is about exercising power. कि आपके पास, how much of power do you have, whether you are using the power with you to do something good or maybe to do something bad to society, to other individuals, to a group, whatever, right? So politics is about power. So what you are seeing at home in society is also about exhibition of that power. Male dominance and authority at home in that sense is also deeply, quote unquote, political, because it is exercising of power. The male at home is exercising his power to say that I have worked outside, now I will come home and watch TV or I look at my mobile or surf social media. I am not supposed to go and help in the cooking. I am not supposed to go and wash the clothes. I am not supposed to go and clean the house, right? It is the woman who also may be working, but she comes home and does this, what I call a double shift syndrome, right? So what is needed is sexual division of labor, gender-based division of labor. There would be your parents, many of them, who would be dividing work at home. That's the way to do it. So gender-based division of labor is extremely important, because when you ask the question, whose responsibility is it to bring up children and take care of domestic chores, the answer always cannot be the mother, right? It has to be the mother and the father, because they brought the child into this world together, right? I want you to think about these things, because you need to be aware citizens, right? You need to be better than the previous generation, right? Gender in politics. Now, while we all talk about very distinctly, men are not supposed to cook. Look at Sanjeev Kapoor. You must have seen this photograph of the man in the center. Khana Khazana, famous chef, right? You see, go to various five-star hotels, you will see male chefs. Very rarely do you find a female chef. So if you can cook outside for a job as a profession, what prevents males from cooking at home as well, right? So this is stereotyping, कि घर पे नहीं बनाएंगे, बाहर काम के लिए बना सकते हैं, that they can cook outside as a profession but not at home. So men do work as tailors, right? Many of the top designers, be it a Manish Malhotra or a Sabyasachi, there are top guys who are all Abu Jani, who are all males, right? So they know a bit about the tailoring work. So why should it be that if your button is broken, you will go to your mother only and say, stitch it for me? Why not to the father? Think about it. Women also, it's not as though they work only at home. They also work outside. They fetch water, right? They work in the fields, in the rural parts of the country. You see the photograph on the left-hand side. She's cutting wheat. They also work in offices, as you see in the photograph on the right. So it's not as though it's not happening. Then why should we stereotype? That's a question each one of us needs to ask. Okay, I hope I've thrown some questions and you would be able to think about it, assimilate it, internalize it, so that you, as I said, become more aware citizens. Gender in politics. Now, women constitute half the population, roughly 49, 50, 51%, depending on different constituencies. But their role in public life is rather minimal. And that's because they do not have enough representation in the bodies that take the decisions, right? So always women have been agitating. First, of course, many years ago, they used to agitate even for voting rights, not in India, but in many other parts of the world. They used to agitate for voting rights itself, right? And there have been feminist movements. What is a feminist movement? You see this photograph that I put of this women dressed in pink saris, right? What is a feminist movement? Iska definition kya hai? A feminist movement is a movement which is aimed at demanding equal. Equal is a key word out here. Equal political, economic, social, legal rights, and career and educational opportunities, right? That if you go to study, you cannot say that only the boys of this particular place will go to study, the girls will stay at home. No, that cannot be and will not be and should not be the case, right? Similarly, while working, If a boy and a girl are equally qualified, both of them should get a shot at getting a particular job in a particular company. Political rights, social rights, legal rights, right? Property mates, not like only the sons will get the share of the parents' property and not the daughters. It can never be the case. The daughters also should get the case. You cannot say that she has been married off, so we will not give her the share of the property. No, that cannot be the case. Legal rights, extremely important. So feminist movements are in pursuit, means are aimed at getting women's rights. Okay, so this definition is important. Please remember it. Women in India are now working as scientists. You see this photograph on the bottom right. This is from ISRO, the day the Mars orbiter mission went into the orbit, September 24, 2014. I was there in this particular room in Bengaluru, the ISRO headquarters, right? Where this happened, right? So I've seen these women celebrating. The women scientists were at the forefront of the Mars orbiter mission, which was incidentally Mars orbiter mission, MOM. MOM is what? Mom. Was nicknamed Mom. As a tribute to all these brilliant women who actually, you know, scientists immediately, you think of, when you say scientist, you think of a male. You say CEO, you think of a male. That kind of a notion needs to change, my young friends. Okay. And I hope, and I'm very sure your generation will do that. Women are now working as scientists. They are working as doctors, as you see in the photograph on the left, engineers, lawyers, educators, and in public life. So it's not as though women are in any way behind men. It is the notion, it is the stereotype and the social expectations that you and I need to change. Okay? Okay, now let me answer the quiz questions. The first question answer is Sirimavo Bandaranaike, who became Prime Minister in 1960 of Ceylon. That was the older name for Sri Lanka, right? The answer to the second question, the first woman Prime Minister of India was Indira Gandhi in 1966 after the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri in Tashkent. The first woman Prime Minister of Pakistan was Benazir Bhutto in 1988. She was assassinated subsequently. The first woman Prime Minister of Bangladesh was Khalida Zia in 1991. Incidentally, the fifth one was a googly because the most advanced country in the world, right? The biggest democracy along with India, USA, has never had a woman president, a full-fledged woman president. Kamala Harris acted as acting president when Joe Biden had to go for some medical treatment, but as a full-fledged president, America has never had a woman president. Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump. Otherwise, Hillary Clinton would have been the first one, right? That did not happen. So these are the answers. So I don't know how many of you got it right. Please write in the comment section. Let's keep it interactive. If you want more such quizzes, objective question and answers, I'll keep giving it to you, right? So that's never an issue. Okay, we will do question and answers separately also, not a problem. Let's look at one question which could possibly be asked. For instance, mention different aspects in which women are discriminated against in India, right? So you could talk about what? Though women constitute half of the population in public life, especially politics, they are not there. Earlier, only men were allowed to participate in public offices and contest for elections. You have a case of villages where women have to fetch water, collect and work in the fields. In urban areas, they work as domestic help, in middle-class homes, etc. The work is not valued or sometimes not even recognized. People are made to believe that men are supposed to work outside the home and not inside the home, but women are supposed to work both outside as well as inside. And there are some interesting statistics that I will show to you a little later in this particular video, which will help you flesh out these kind of questions and answers much better. Okay. You should know this. That's what I have titled this. You should know this. I see this chapter as extremely important for you to understand it in not just as a chapter, but beyond a chapter. What is patriarchy? And you will hear this term a lot as you grow up. Patriarchy literally means rule by father. It's a system that values men more and gives them power over women. Okay, Please remember this. Now, in countries like Sweden, Norway, Finland, all of them in Europe, participation of women in public life has been high. India is still, even though you had a woman prime minister, Indira Gandhi, in 1966, India is still a male-dominated political society where women face oppression and discrimination in middle-class homes everywhere. Okay. The interesting statistic here is that, my friends, women work for and this is as part of a survey, women work for 7.5 hours every day, while men work for 6.5 hours. So men are actually working 1 hour less than the women. The work done by men is more visible because they go out, they bring money into the home, right? Income is generated. Women work is often classified as household work, which is not generating any income, right? Which is why I have a lot of respect for women who do business while they are homemakers. Housewife, again, is a term which is politically incorrect. You should never use the word housewife. They are homemakers. They make your home. Your mother, right? The girl you would marry in the future, right? Or you, the female students, you are all going to be homemakers. And of course, I would wish that both you also are professionals outside, right? So that kind of roles is what you are going to. So don't use the word housewife for anyone. Use the term homemakers. Literacy. Now, this is important. Now, the earlier editions of NCERT books, I don't know which edition of NCERT you would be having, they say 54% women literacy, 76% of men in India are literate. The latest figure, according to the 2022 figures, are 70% of women and 84% of men in India are literate. Yani ki they can read and write. Okay. The problem comes with the dropout issue. And this you would find, like I had done a documentary from the southern part of Andhra Pradesh about 4 years ago, and this got an award also, which spoke about how the parents would migrate in search of work, because that's a very dry area, Anantapur district, and specifically talking about Kadri in Anantapur, and this would lead to the dropout rate. And especially the eldest child, if it happens to be a daughter, she would drop out of school to take care of the younger siblings at home. So the dropout rate, and especially what happens is that in many villages, there would be a primary school till class 10. So till class 10, the girl child will study. For 11th and 12th, intermediate or PUC as it is called in many states, they would have to go outside their village. They would have to go for 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. The parents would be reluctant to send them by a cycle or an auto rickshaw or a tempo kind of a transport. So the result would be that they would drop out of school, right? Which is a huge negative. So dropout rate. So while the literacy rate is going up, they may know how to read and write, but they're not getting educated well enough. That's the difference. Salary parity is not there across sectors, despite there is something called an equal remuneration. Remuneration means giving of money. Remunerate means I do some work and I get some money in return. Remuneration Act 1976, which says equal wages for equal work. If you and I are doing the same work, you should be paid the same amount of money as I am getting paid. But despite this, across sectors, you would have heard, I don't know if you have heard that in many interviews, people like, say, Kareena Kapoor has spoken about how the male actor will always get much more money than the female actor. In many sports also, what happens is that the prize money for the men's singles tournament is much more than that of the women's singles, right? Women cricket is not encouraged as much as men's cricket. Now, you may argue that there is more viewership for men's cricket, but unless you encourage it, how would you create those women cricketing superstars, right? And we have had superstars like Jhulan Goswami and my good friend Mithali Raj. So that's what you need to do. So these are all things which you need to be aware of. You should also know this about female infanticide, which means you kill the female infant as soon as she is born, right? There is also called something called feticide, where you kill the female fetus, and that is after the ultrasound reveals the sex of the child, which is why it is illegal to reveal the sex of the child or to even ask for the sex of the child, right? Because it leads to sex selective abortion, that if it's a female child, you abort the child because we want only a male offspring. That is the notion in many states across India. And what this led to was a decline in the child sex ratio. Child sex ratio is the number of girl children per 1000 boys, and at one point of time it was just hovering around 914. But according to the economic survey report of 2015-16, it increased to 991 girls per 1000 boys. It should ideally be almost equal. Now, as per the 2019-20 economic survey, it increased to 1020 per 1000 boys, which means that the sex ratio is better. But in some states like Haryana and Punjab in particular, and Haryana has always been a problem state in this regard, they are a concern because there the sex ratio is much less than the national average. Okay, this is again something which you should know. In fact, when I was writing the biography of Saina Nehwal, who is originally from Hisar in Haryana, she had also spoken about how her grandmother was initially not very happy because she has a sister, right? That the second child was also a daughter, and look at how much of pride and laurels she has brought for the country. So it does not matter what the sex of the child is. What matters is what you make him or her do, what is the caliber of the child. Now, proportion of women in India in legislature in India, which means that is the policy making bodies, is low. In the 17th Lok Sabha, that is after the 2019 elections, 14.39% MPs were women, which is the highest so far. But this but is important. It is still much less than the global average. The world average of women in legislature in the world is 24.6%. So you are more than 10% less the average in the world. In some of the developing countries, it's 20%, 40% also. But in India, it's only 14.39%, right? In parliament, right? And this is a photograph of some of the MPs. You see Meenakshi Lekhi, you see other MPs also who are women MPs who are sitting there. Supriya Sule, daughter of Sharad Pawar. Now, what do you need to do? Now, you need to make it in order to increase women's. Why do you need women? You may ask, why do you need more women in parliament? Because they can make women-centric laws which would be useful and beneficial to the women of the country. So you need to make it legally binding to have fair proportion. Fair means good proportion of women in elected bodies, which is why, and India has been progressive to an extent in that regard, because 33% of seats in panchayats and municipalities, that is the urban local bodies, are reserved for women. Rural local bodies, the panchayats, they're also reserved for women. Unfortunately, what happens is that the males who are also politicians, since they cannot contest because their seat has been reserved for women, what they do is they make their wife contest and become the sarpanch. Okay, but the decisions continue to be taken by men, which kind of defeats the entire purpose. And you would have seen this very brilliant serial called Panchayat. I think it was on Sony Live, if I'm not mistaken. It's about a panchayat, a village in UP, I think near Balia, where the woman Sarpanch is played by Neena Gupta, and her husband is Raghubir Yadav, who is actually called the Sarpanch, because he's the one who was earlier the Sarpanch, but now the seat has been reserved for a woman. So he gets his wife elected, but he's the one who takes all the decisions. Even the officials consult him. He's the one who comes and sits in the office. She does not even leave home. So that kind of defeats the entire purpose of reservation of seats for women in panchayats and local bodies. But despite this, in terms of numbers, 10 lakh elected women representatives are there in both rural and urban. So in many places, this is a problem. But even if some good has come out of this, it would still be better. But we need to do much better than this. There are women organizations who have been demanding similar reservation in Lok Sabha and state assemblies. But the proposal for that 33% reservation has been pending for years. I think it came about just when I was starting my career. It's still pending, right? Let's end this video with looking at two cartoons. This one is from Surendra. Now you see they are saying the woman bill, that lady is trying to get inside parliament, and the person on top, the male MP, is saying, don't worry, we will find a way for you, right? And all the gates to Parliament House are blocked by male MPs, and that's what was done actually by many of the male MPs when there were demands that reservation bill should be brought for women. This one by my friend Satish Acharya. In fact, this illustration that you see of my wife is drawn by Satish Acharya. It says, men at work, but the women do not get empowered, right? They do not get empowered even when men are at work. The women's reservation bill continues to be in cold storage, so to say, right? So with that, we come to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you understood it. Please subscribe to the channel. Please share the video with your friends, as I said right at the beginning of the video. And we hope we continue to get your support so that we can do many more videos and we can help you score the maximum marks in civics and social science. Thank you very much. I will see you in the video relating to religion next. Thank you very much. Tata. Bye-bye.